And welcome to the Rangers News YouTube channel. My name is Cameron Willis, and in this week's episode of the Rangers News Roundup, I'm joined by Jordan Carlisle. How are we, Jordan?
Not too bad, mate. Thanks. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Another week as the champions of Scotland, so can't complain. If you're watching this and you like the content that we provide and you're not yet a subscriber, please click like and please subscribe to the page. Please leave a comment below if you enjoy what you see or you want to kind of comment on any of the things that we're talking about. There was no Rangers this weekend, but there was still plenty to talk about in a huge week for the club. And there's another huge week ahead. So, yeah, I don't think we'll be kind of starved of kind of conversation points in this video, Jordan. But we're better to start with a match with Slavia Prague last week. Rangers obviously take a 1-1 draw back from the Czech Republic in the Europa League last 16. We go into a huge match at Ibrox where we can potentially book our place in the quarterfinals, knowing that if we keep a clean sheet, we will reach that stage of the competition. But yeah, an interesting match. I think Rangers were kind of flat-footed for the first 20 minutes, but worked their way back into it. Jordan, what were your thoughts on the game last week?
I think it's a good result, isn't it? I can't remember even if we predicted before that. I sort of have it in my head that maybe said score draw, but maybe that's just fanciful. I'm not sure. But I mean, early on, I did think when Rangers got back into it, I thought it was going to be another mental one, because the Rangers basically done nothing until the goal. So I thought it was an interesting game. They're obviously high in confidence at the minute. They've been on a brilliant run. Stanchi as well. What a goal that was! And he scored again twice at the weekend. I think he's got 6 and 4 or something like that. So it's a couple of playing before Antwerp before with Rafailov and now him. Like some proper quality. Rangers are coming up against at this sort of stage, which you're gonna expect, don't you? And that was an excellent goal. I thought Hadji was just brilliant. I thought so good for that equaliser. The game was in such a dangerous position. With them having their tails up, and it could have gone out of hand fairly quickly. Yeah, but I thought he was just so good with the anticipation. It's just such a simple pass in the end when he gets onto it, but to anticipate and get there and knock it back to Big Phil, who showed some emotion, which is remarkable after he scored. But yeah, I thought it was going to be a real sort of humdinger back and forth after that. But it settled down a little bit. McGregor, obviously, at the end, just unbelievable. One of those ones where I think probably the Old Firm, I'd say that earlier in the season, there was one of those early on. But, one of those ones where you're actually like proper stunned that someone's pulled something off. It was an absolute wonder save, and so important, like the psychologically, in terms just of the Bear scoreboard, absolutely massive moment. So I think they'll have come away from that very positive.
How many jokes do you think were cracked about hangovers in the first 20 minutes of that match?
Oh my god, yeah. Although saying that, like, see whether it's actual. Obviously they're not still going to be hanging at that point, but it probably was unrealistic. I don't know if we really even talked about it that much for the game. It was probably unrealistic to expect them to come out and be absolutely all over it. It was pretty likely that it was going to take them a while to settle into the game, and Slavia were probably pretty wise to that, and that maybe showed in the early stages. But yeah, plenty of bad crack around that.
I thought they looked in the opening stages of the match. They looked like a really good team, really efficient, really patient, passing the ball from side to side, moving together as a unit. A really really good team, and I thought Hollander was the main man prior to that goal. I thought Rangers were getting ran a little bit ragged. Maybe McGregor got caught out for the first goal as well, but Hollander was top notch. He was coming in with tackles, interceptions, the whole shebang, and then he popped up with a goal. And then it was strange because after that, Hollander had a kind of reduced role in the game, so he went back to kind of being a bit of an unsung hero. But when we were playing, when we were under the cosh, I thought he was a real leader. And it was a top performance by him, and shows you the quality that Rangers have in that player, and the fact that he used to play in Serie A and stuff, and you've really seen it. And I rate big Hollander, man. I thought he was one of the standout players. But the McGregor save, so much has been said about that. Do you think it's the greatest save of all time? As some have kind of.
I don't know. Like, I'm not sure I'm well qualified to talk about Gordon Banks and all that. Like,
you think?
trolling through the history of football is slightly beyond me. Like,
Do you think it's his best save?
It's certainly the best. Like when I obviously like talked about the Old Firm earlier this year, there's a few. There's also been really big ones, you know, like massive performances, like the Villarreal one at Ibrox in his first season back, and a few things like that. But no, I can't. I cannot think of anything. See, to be fair, I can't think of actually a better save that I've just seen. I've watched in a live game. It was unbelievable. It's just the fact that's behind him as well. How funny was his interview as well after the game? He hates speaking, but he's also done it quite a lot recently.
They put him out even though he's clearly not arsed. Like,
yeah, I don't know if that's just like that, like your senior player, out you go, and he's literally like it's so obvious that he doesn't want to be there. And he's just like, you know, what's the science behind it? You know, what's your secret? And he's like, I stuck my hand out and like thankfully it didn't go in. Cheers for the insight. I'll just watch the video.
He's not a pretentious bone in the guy's body, you know what I mean? It's just it is, and he saved us there, like, because if they score there, we need to score. I mean, I still fancy us to play that way on Thursday, to go out and try and score, but it means that if we need to score, whereas now we can, if we keep a clean sheet, we guarantee progress in the next round. And Rangers have been very, very good at keeping clean sheets. Maybe not all the time in Europe, but I mean that's a huge incentive for a team that's used to it by now. Is just be solid at the back, and then if we score, we've got our noses in front. How do you think that's going to go on Thursday night?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. See, to be fair, before Leverkusen came last season, I was worried before they came, and then that sort of, you know, it proved to be potentially the gap was even bigger than I thought it was, you know, in terms of the quality in the games. But see, since then, it's just been Galatasaray was a big test in the qualifiers, passed that pretty easily, and then since that, like, some big teams have come and still not got the results that they wanted. So I do think that defensively there's still some issues. Even you're talking about Hollander as well. How much does he love absolutely sprinting 50 yards out of his own box to tackle people in the halfway line? He absolutely loves it. It's some buzz out of it. But yeah, I think defensively there are some issues just with them. I think we talked about this before. Like, just seems to be more space. I don't know if it's more space for opposition attackers or just they can find that space better. I think they'll also surely be better in the final third because real quality in the first goal. But I thought in the second half they were abysmal when they got anywhere near the goal, other than obviously the header. There was a few crosses, you know, straight into the stand. Sima had one that was Sima one. He cut inside and he hit one that was so bad that didn't even go out for a throw in. Like they had some very poor efforts at goal, and you would imagine that would be the same thing this time around. So I think it's a case of maybe getting slightly tighter to players, taking the help from midfield and being a little bit more street smart maybe in those ways in terms of guys dropping back and filling in. But if you want to go for goals, obviously you sacrifice a little bit that way. So yeah, I'm pretty confident Rangers can beat most teams at home at the minute. Certainly at this kind of level. And I think Slavia have been brilliant. Probably the biggest test. When you look at it, like on paper, probably Benfica are the best team Rangers have faced so far in the competition. But there is some serious quality in the Slavia team in terms of their momentum and all that. It makes it a very, very big test. So I think it will be difficult. It'll be more of a challenge, harder to get through than Antwerp because defensively they were pretty weak. But I definitely think Rangers can do it.
Do you think the week off in the run up to it will benefit us? Or I think there was somebody in the Slavia team or something coming out maybe saying that it would hamper us in terms of momentum. But do you think it will help Rangers?
Shimano, it was Stanchi, I think. Yeah, it's a tough one because I think we've spoken before. I do think almost what he was saying. He likes the rhythm of weekend, midweek, and I think Rangers like that as well. but also I think they like that in terms of the rhythm, but I don't think it's a disadvantage at this stage of the season when people have played a lot of games. There hasn't been an international break in some time. There's a few injuries as well. There have been injuries around the camp. The more time, the less games that are played when people are out injured, Rangers will be happy enough with. And it gives time to prepare not only for this, but also for the Old Firm at the weekend. Really get the heads in the right space, totally put all the celebrations and stuff to the side, bring the standards back up and go at it. So maybe this is a rare case where I think it would be an advantage. Sometimes I think it's not the way that Rangers, most of the time, I think it's not the way they would like to go about things. But I think in this case, it might actually be an advantage.
I think it's a chance to catch a breather because it was mad. Like, Rangers win the league on the Sunday. Obviously, all the fans are outside on Saturday. Win the league on the Sunday. Glasgow's pandemonium. Everyone's nursing 3-day hangovers and all that. And then we're back into playing Slavia Prague, and it was a strange feeling because of how big the celebrations were. That in March we're going back into European competition, and it was weird. It was like, as a supporter, maybe a wee bit of an adjustment to get back into it. And I think for the players, I mean, that must have been a real challenge to readjust from all that kind of distraction and go back out and come away with an admirable result. So I think they deserve a pat in the back. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the fact that we've got a week to basically breathe, after everything that's happened and reflect on the kind of title win and stuff, I think it'll be beneficial to us. And I'm very much looking forward to Thursday night. I think we'll go into it in more depth in another video. But for now, we'll kind of move on to the other big game that's happening this week in Scotland.
Or is it?
It's the Glasgow Derby, apparently. Seriously, it's been the fallout from Rangers celebrations have been monumental. And because of them, apparently the Old Firm's been under threat. So both figures from Rangers and Celtic have been out all week sending messages to fans to stay home. I don't think it's the same but, as Rangers celebration, sorry, but yeah. The message has been hit home nonetheless. Stay at home. This Sunday at 12 p.m. when Rangers are playing Celtic at Celtic Park. Do not go to the stadium, etc., etc. But yeah, did you think that the Old Firm was ever seriously going to be under threat, or is it still under threat? Because at the time of recording, Nicola Sturgeon says the decision's not been made. So, what's your thoughts on the entire thing?
I think it's just scaremongering. Like, I don't think at any point I've seen anything come out of it and be like, oh, this might actually be called off. I think it would be ridiculous. It's a very strange precedent as well. Like, how could you call off this game, but have all the other games in the Premiership go at the weekend, and then when would you play it again, or what are you suggesting that the season would finish and the game wouldn't be played? I just think it's very unlikely that a move like that would ever really be made, unless it's a blanket stoppage like there obviously was last season with when this whole thing started. But yeah, I think it's sort of inevitable. They have to be seen to be doing something, don't they, in both the clubs as well. I think Rangers are sort of, obviously the messages and stuff were serious enough, and the criticism from the other stuff was serious enough, that they have changed their approach slightly, because they obviously put Gerrard out in terms of his videos, and he was, pretty clear coming across, and like, we want people to abide by, social distancing protocols and all this sort of stuff. But I understand the emotion and I understand the hurt and the 10 years and everything like that. He was sort of flipping between both maybe a little bit in the interviews, and then that statement came out where it was literally just unequivocally, you're all great, but you can't go and do this. I thought it was quite a slight shift that way. But I think that's probably because as well, the club are also pretty aware that there's nowhere near as much appetite to do it. It's not going to be as big a deal as people have pointed out. This is, it's an Old Firm, so it'll be an Old Firm, but also it doesn't actually mean anything in the context of the season. It's a chance for Rangers to win a third league derby in a row, or in the season, which would be a massive achievement. But I think it's one where Rangers fans were out last week. All the negative publicity and stuff from it. I think it was on Celtic putting up barriers and stuff around Parkhead. I don't know who that's supposed to be for, but yeah, I don't think it was ever really under threat, but it's no surprise to see the government talking about it because, to be fair, the amount of backlash from all of the thing, they have to be shown to be taking some sort of steps, and so do both the clubs as well. So the rhetoric's not really surprised, but there's no way they're going to cancel it. Like,
I think Celtic have been so salty. You know, it's pretty remarkable. Genuinely, I didn't think that they would be as bad as that, but some of the patter that they're coming out with now, especially the Glasgow Derby stuff, they're just pushing out. Like, call it the Glasgow Derby if you want. I don't particularly care. It just makes them look so kind of small. But I think as well, see the Old Firm fallout and that. I think a lot of people had an issue with who was celebrating. Like, and whilst you might, there's an obvious and clear justification with regards gatherings right now. I think that some of the stuff that's been levelled at Rangers supporters and it has been quite inflammatory. So I think that even last week I had to take a real break for social media and stuff because in the week before it, and particularly last Saturday, it was so joyous and happy and stuff. And then last week things just started getting really sour and bitter, and people just kind of try to take away or take the gloss of Rangers' achievement or like 55 and put it into this big kind of political battlefield, which I think is no surprise given the history of Scottish football. But it just really turned me off, and it was really annoying and frustrating to see that people could just, let's be honest, be so bloody salty about the fact that Rangers have won the league, that they turn it into XYZ and bring up this and that and the next thing and misrepresent what was happening. You know, so many people represented it as if it was like a riot. It's not a riot. It was a celebration. You know, and it was just, it was triggering. You know, I think that it was so easy to get an emotional response for people because that's just the nature of the game. I think last week's social media was a wee bit of a tinderbox anyway, but yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's honestly, some of the stuff has just been so ridiculous, so OTT. I get that the government need to be shown to do this, etc., but it's not the same as Rangers winning the league. No one's going to have a pitch battle for George Square. It's going to be okay. The Old Firm's going to be played, and it will pass with minimal fuss, I imagine. But yeah, we are the champions. Some people don't like it, which is fine, but it's not going to change it. So yeah, hopefully Rangers can kind of smooth it out with the government so that we can have some kind of celebration with the players come May if things continue to go as they're going with the pandemic. But we shall see. As for the Old Firm itself, how do you think Rangers are faring ahead of the match?
Yeah, it's obviously the momentum can change and stuff a little bit in terms of, because we'll have the Europa League game before that, but just the situation that the club is in, it is incredible. So you're talking about Celtic and stuff, like it's incredible how they've managed to literally, you know, shoot themselves in the foot at every single turn across this season. The some of the social media stuff as well. See the not, we're not half anything, and then people bringing up the renewing the Old Firm patent. It's the trademark. It's just stunning that you would even put that out there when there's a potential that people could know that. Unbelievable. So I think they're, you know, in the situation where everyone's talking about who the next manager is going to be, the Kennedy and stuff there. Motivation for the players just going to drop massively, whereas Rangers have the unbeaten record to hold on to. I think I've seen people say as well that, you know, momentum's a massive thing. I think it was Richard Goff was saying this week, momentum's a massive thing in football. But, you know, I actually think these two teams are relatively well matched. I just don't think that's been proven at all across the season. It's not just in domestic stuff. Celtic have massively underperformed in Europe. I think they're very disjointed, and Rangers have better players now. That's just clear from the results. So, as it's actually been for a while, even last season, if Rangers turn up to win the game, I think that's a reality, and also the fact that there's no crowd. I think almost weirdly going into the game having 60,000 Celtic fans at Celtic Park might actually be an advantage for Rangers going into this, because as soon as there's a first misplaced pass, people are going to be absolutely fuming. So having it behind closed doors is actually maybe a disadvantage in this circumstance. But I mean, it's essentially, you know, the home advantage is stripped away somewhat in it from that. So I just think Rangers should be far too strong if they play well, if the heads are screwed on with all that's going on in Europe and things like that, and the motivation's still there. No Tav will be a big blow if he's not back in time, and big test for Nathan Patterson. But what do you think?
I mean, I've got to fancy Rangers for it based on I've got some sun in my eyes here, man. But I've got to fancy Rangers on the basis of what's happened this season. But not just that, but those Rangers players, they've had to take a wee bit of shit from those Celtic players over the course of the last few seasons, and I've just got the feeling I'm going to go there and enjoy it. I mean, we're waltzing into Celtic Park as champions. Like, you know what I mean? But it's the middle of March. We've absolutely we're unbeaten still. They're realistically the only team that's going to be able to stop that. I mean, Rangers could potentially go further into Europe, and maybe that'll have an impact in squad rotation and stuff. But anyway, this is going to be one of their last opportunities to kind of stop that. They are going to be so easy to wind up, and I don't know. I think Rangers are going to go there, be professional, and in terms of our recovery, there's only one thing that we haven't done, and that is absolutely scud them. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we do. I think Celtic heads will go down. I mean, I think it'll start with kind of. I mean, Celtic have obviously got good players, and that they wouldn't be in this position if they didn't. But well, at this level at least. But I think they're going to come out and they're going to give it a real go and stuff. But I just think if Rangers get their noses in front, their heads are going to go down, and we've got the mental edge right now, and I just cannot wait to see us kind of waltz in there as champions. And there's no way that they're going to give us a guard of honor. I don't understand how folk are saying that, but it just shows them up because the last time when Rangers never done it and all the stuff that was coming out, it's so good. And I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to let any of this kind of commentary or bitterness and annoyance or frustration that's coming out from other sets of supporters or politicians ruin this season or this kind of opportunity for Rangers this weekend. And I'm very excited to see us go there and hopefully kind of put the bow on the title. And then we've still got to play them one more time, but I can tell you, man, that Celtic team do not fancy playing us, and I think that'll show at the weekend. I hope it does. I hope it doesn't come back and put egg in my face, but I hope that we scud them, and I think that we've got it in us to do it. But maybe it all depends on what happens on Thursday as well. But you touched on Nathan Patterson there. He's obviously getting a lot of good press at the minute. And with good reason too. He's putting in a lot of kind of big performances. Maybe the fact he got caught in that part, he's kind of went, oh, shit, a bit of focus now, you know what I mean? But yeah, he's been impressing, and there's been a few calls for him to get the kind of Scotland call up. Now, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think that he deserves it? And do you think that it would be good for Scotland to get a player who really seems as if he's naturally going to fill that position for a long time to come if his progression goes as planned, to get him in early? Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, I think in general, getting players in the international squads and stuff early on, surrounding them with good players, I think, it's no secret that Scotland see this as, Scotland national team's definitely not my area speciality. But I mean, there's even I know, there's been a real shortage of right backs. They've got 15 left backs and no right backs. But even getting into a squad there where there's a lot of Premier League play, like this guy's a guy who's already playing in the knockout stage of the Europa League. You get him into a group where there's fellow fullbacks and other players playing at a really high level Premier League and Champions League football. That can only be good for him. I think it's a pretty small sample size people are going off, but a sample size where recently he's playing in high profile games. So it's going to give you a great indication of how it'd go. I also think it's just so, international football is easier than club football. I don't think there's any question about that. Someone has seen Northern Ireland overachieve, thankfully, for the last 5 or so years after a long period of drought. It's about getting the best out of, you can succeed getting the best out of players of relatively limited ability. So I think if you can perform in the Europa League and fast-paced games against Slavia and Royal Antwerp, you can play in the much slower-paced World Cup qualifiers and stuff like that against lower nations. So I think he could do a job, certainly. I just think that it's a bit of a weird position to be in because I think he's played. See, actually, before I think he's played under 21s. I think he's been played on the right wing for the under 21s a little bit, which is interesting. But this thing, his progression has went up rapidly, and that first senior goal, first Premiership start, all in the last couple of weeks has changed things a little bit. But yeah, I think with the impending ban makes it a little bit weird, because you're talking about a senior national call up when I think so in the international break. I think his hearing is like 4 days after the Old Firm, which might even be the first day that's got him play. So are they going to be calling someone up to a squad when they're actually deciding, whether he's going to play again that season domestically, on the same day as those games are happening? I think that complicates it a little bit. And looking ahead to the Euros, and I was thinking about that, writing a wee bit about it this morning, that if you're looking at this guy or you're looking at your squad and who you're going to have your squad in the squad for the Euros, obviously he's going to get banned coming up. It's likely that it's going to be, you would think, similar to what Jones and Edmondson got, so 7 games. There's the Scottish Cup in there as well, but there's the, good chance that he misses all the post-split games and a couple of Scottish Cup games, or, maybe he's free for the last game of the season or free for the Scottish Cup final. Whatever way that works with the fixtures and the length of the ban. But there's a chance that, Tab's going to be back fit soon as well after the international break. So there's a chance he plays basically no football between now and the end of the season. So surely you're not going to pick a guy who has still, when you break it down, played 10 senior games or something like that, only a couple of starts, whether you'd actually pick him for the Euros. So obviously his stock has risen massively in the last couple of weeks, but this is still looming over his head, and it's his mistake. It's his fault. So he may still then, because he hasn't really paid. He's maybe paid financially in terms of the internal discipline and this isolation period, but his actual punishment hasn't come yet. So his rewards have sort of come before the punishment, and that's worked out really well for Rangers with Tav injured. That this has taken an unbelievable amount of time to sort out, but. I think that is probably playing into it. So I think he could certainly, if he can do a job for Rangers in Europe, he can do a job for Scotland. But he's very inexperienced, and the ban stuff and the COVID thing might hamper him a little bit, I think, going forward. What do you think?
I think he can do it. I think he's definitely good enough. I think there's obviously a wee bit of a hype train behind him because of his performance and the fact that he's like a Rangers Academy kind of prospect that's coming through and who's appears to have a genuine track right into the first team, which is something I don't think we've had for a while. But yeah, I think he's good enough, and I think that if Scotland, who I've obviously had well-documented issues at right back, I mean, they're playing Stephen O'Donnell there, I think. So I think that it would make sense to get him in, but then the way that Scotland are and have been, combined with the fact that the Euros are on the horizon, and I don't think there'll be too much shake-up to the kind of squad, although I did see Che Adams, I think, might be getting called up. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it might have even been announced by the time this comes out. But yeah, I don't. Me personally, obviously, I'm going to say I'm a Rangers fan, but if there was a talented young right back playing for Scotland, I'd get him in as soon as possible. I think they should probably be doing the same with Billy Gilmore and stuff. And I think that countries, that's like a trend in kind of more forward-thinking countries to get young players in early, and maybe Scotland are slacking in that regard. And they're hesitant. But I think it's inevitable they will get called up. But yeah, maybe not until after the Euros now. But we shall see. Maybe Steve Clark will surprise us. Look at this sun in my face, man. I'm like blind.
I mean, it's good to see it. I think it's above 10 degrees today, so we'll take that.
I'm not going to complain. Yeah, so beyond that, the other kind of big talking point, I think, was Alfredo Morelos saying that if he gets an offer from the Premier League, he'll take it. I think he said that for the 25th time.
It's just the same quotes. Yeah. He actually said it. He said it when he was still in Finland.
Yeah, just said it his entire career. So yeah, it sparks off loads of conversation. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to fix this. That better.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it sparks kind of loads of conversation on social media and in the papers and stuff about his future. And then Ross Wilson did an interview with the Telegraph where he was saying Rangers it's the same old kind of line. Rangers are a selling club, but they need to sell low, buy low, sell high, etc., etc. But they're only going to sell when the time is right for Rangers. I think Morelos transfer speculation is second nature to Rangers fans. So yeah, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think that he'll go at the end of this season, or do you think the lure of Champions League football could maybe convince him to stay another season?
Yeah, I do think the Champions League is a different factor. But I also sort of think that Rangers would be in a position where this is probably the time that they'll be happy enough, because what they don't want to do is devalue him. He's 24 now. I think his contract's till 2023. He was going through that period where they were extending his contract every fortnight, but they haven't done one for a while. I think it might be 2023, maybe at a push 2024. You want to maximize the value out of him. So if he's not, if you're not going to sign another one now, you don't want to leave it till he's got 2 years, 18 months, that sort of stuff. I think he's, I've sort of, my opinions changed like throughout the season a little bit, because it was frustrating me a lot when he wasn't fully fit and didn't seem to be fully into it. But I mean, he's been brilliant recently. So to an extent, I think he could still be the hardest player to replace in the squad. But I think there's an awareness that that's going to have to happen at some point. He's given good service to an extent. He hasn't been always the most reliable in terms of discipline and that sort of stuff. But I mean, he's been about for a long time, carried the team for a long time. I think he's kind of earned it at this point. So yeah, it's a question that he can play Champions League football for Rangers. What else does he want? Maybe he'll want a more high profile league. And I think, yeah, as you said, the Premier League stuff's come about time and time again. I think if there was a Premier League team looking at him at the start of the season and the guy hadn't scored at home in the league for, I don't know, he scored there recently, wasn't it? And he hadn't scored since August. So we're talking months and months that he hadn't scored at home. That's not the type of performance that's going to bring in massive bids. But I think now he's performing again, knockout stages of the Europa League. There will be teams interested and teams who have probably been interested before, but I do think the summer will probably be the time. Roof is at the club, settled. Itten is in and settled, and he's obviously a development one for the future. Defoe might go as well, so it might be a case of needing to bring another 2 strikers in, but you've got some sort of contingency in place with Itten and Roof. And I think it'll probably be the time for him, whereas maybe it might not be the time for Joe Rebo. They're players at sort of different stages of their career, but I think this could be the optimum time to sell and the least risky, given that the ultimate objective has been achieved in 55. So, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him go this summer either, man. I wouldn't. I think that, but I do think that Rangers kind of hold the aces with it. I think that he'll only go if it suits us. I don't think there would be a Rangers fan out there who'd be upset with him if Rangers were to receive a suitable bid and Morelos was to leave. I mean, the boy is, I think it's 2023 he's contracted to. He's worth £20 million. Like, it's ludicrous to suggest otherwise. I know that some commentators and stuff, particularly ones that with more kind of green glasses, like to say, like always say 12 to 15 and stuff like that. I mean, Rangers rejected £60 million in the summer, reportedly. I think he's worth £20 million. I think that if we can get £20 million for him, and he sets the benchmark for the new kind of recruitment side of Rangers as a business. I think he might be the player that kind of could potentially kick that off. But then there's other people talking about Kamara and Barisic after the Euros and that, and you can't completely obviously dismantle the team, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him go, but only if the money's right. But even if, say, somebody doesn't come in for a bid, or say somebody comes in for a bid that's, I don't know, £10 million and Rangers don't want to sell him, I don't think it's the end of the world for Morelos personally, because I still think there is incentive to be at Rangers with the Champions League. So even if the club can't come to an agreement with a club, or say there's a club that comes in with a low bid and Rangers reject it, and there's rumours about Morelos being upset about it, I just think that unless somebody meets Rangers' valuation, I don't think there's any pressure to sell him this season. There would be next season, because he's got a year left in his deal. And I think for Morelos personally, I think there's incentive with the Champions League. So I don't know. It's one to watch, but if the money's right, I think you'll go. And then Rangers there's millions of Rangers have already been linked to loads of strikers like Fashion Sakala and Britta Sombalonga. There's another guy, a Gabonese striker, I can't remember his name, being linked. So Rangers will have a plan in place should Morelos go. I read the very interesting article by Jordan Campbell at The Athletic regarding Rangers season, and it was really, really interesting talking about things that they'd done behind the scenes. And in that, he actually claimed that Roof was signed as a replacement for Morelos, which is interesting. Or Roof was signed as a player who was seen he could fulfill that Morelos role. So very interesting when you actually look at them playing. But I mean, they've got more information than what we're kind of party to with regards to making them decisions. So yeah, I think Roof would become the number one, and I don't think that we would go out and spend a fortune on a replacement. Because I think Roof would come in and do that. But yeah, either way, it doesn't frighten me. I just hope that he gets to 100 goals before the end of the season because he's so close now. And it would be amazing if he managed. If Alfredo Morelos is one of the Rangers players that scored 100 goals, I think it would be a nice way to kind of end his Ibrox career for the time being at least. But we'll see what happens.
I think that would be interesting in terms of whether it would if Roof was signed as a replacement, and he did say when he came in that he wanted to play number 9. That's what he saw himself doing. I'm not sure he's actually, I think that could have been a bit of an issue if Morelos had, obviously Morelos has missed games, obviously a relatively large amount of games due to suspensions, but he's been very good injury-wise. He's been pretty fit in terms of Roof doesn't have that. I think we've seen Leeds fans say before he came that this guy's an absolute cracker when he's firing, but he does not stay fit for long. And we've seen that. Maybe 3 different calf injuries he's had since he's been at Rangers. I also don't think he's been that impressive when he's played up front in the zone. So had Rangers sold Morelos and then put the faith in Roof, that could actually have been an issue this season. Mm-hmm. But maybe haven't seen what happens. Maybe they think, he can play in that second striker role. He can play in that sort of inside forward off the right. Can have Roof in there. Maybe that's where we'll get the best out of him. We still need a target man, or we need a goal scorer. And you maybe change the approach slightly with your man Sakala. I think he's slightly smaller, quick, a good finisher. Do you change your playing style slightly and don't go for the sort of bullish front man? But I would be surprised if they weren't. Well, I'd be disappointed if they thought that, Roof is the 100% answer if Morelos went, but I suppose we'll just have to wait and see on that.
Hopefully doesn't go, man. But he might, and then he's adamant he wants to go to the Premier League, and it's a lot of hysteria, but it's no surprise when he says that. He says it every single time. But yeah, other than that,
maybe he's just been practicing his English. He's just been using Rangers and Glasgow as a base to practice his English. Now he's finally cracked it. He'll sail down there and be like a media personality, doing interviews before and after every game. And
would you like to go to the Premier League, Alfredo? Yeah, it's very good for the club, the fact. The only other major news I think is this news about Walter Smith. I think Rangers did really well to come out and just have a wee short sentence. Don't want to get into it too much either, but the fact that he's recovering from an operation in hospital, and everybody at Rangers News and certainly us will wish him all the best. He's an absolute legend of a man, a guy that kind of transcends generations because he was in the 9-in-a-row team and then he came back for 3 in a row, and the between him and John Gregg, probably the two most influential and kind of titanic Rangers figures. So yeah, we wish him all the best in his recovery. But yeah, ahead of what's going to be a huge week, is there anything else you want to add? Will Rangers be in the quarterfinals of the Europa League, and will Rangers still be unbeaten, or better than that, will Rangers win at Celtic Park for the 3rd time in a row come Sunday?
I think so, but I mean, I'll say it quietly because I don't want to get carried away.
I think so too, man. I think this game on Thursday is going to be tough. It's going to be tight, but Yeah, I think Rangers will show up. They're hungry, and then let's just see. Because I mean, we could even be speaking next week about who we've got in the Europa League quarterfinals. But I think we better not get too carried away before.
No.
But I know what is it. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this, please leave a comment. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. We'll be back throughout the week with more videos, more views and opinions on Rangers. Yes, thank you so much.
Lovely.